The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, here we go. T. Martin days till the Vols play Virginia in Nashville. 15 days. And we've got a monstrous show lined up. A Football Friday with Fred, according to our analytics. He is your favorite guest, so we'll visit with him. That should be a whole lot of fun. Also, Deion Sanders says, fight, fight, fight. That's what he loves. And that's the exact opposite of what Josh Heupel loves. So we'll discuss fighting a little bit as Deion's like, go get in there. Get in there. Beat some people up, even though it's your teammates. There has to be a happy medium. Again, Fred White will join us. We'll discuss bonding in preseason camp because this is the time that you do it. Because it's brutal, it's hot, and you probably don't want to be there at times. Also, the Johnny Manziel documentary, I saw it. Caleb saw it. We might have different thoughts on that. Just real quickly, let's do Siskel and Ebert. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'm actually thumbs up. I'm going to give it a thumbs up.
Okay, fair enough. Thumbs down. We'll explain why a little bit later.
Thumbs down Johnny Manziel as a person, so it's hard to make a good documentary on somebody that has never really reformed themselves. Put it that way.
Fair. This sounds familiar. Tennessee projected to win 9 games by the FPI, so we'll get into that too. That's a big what the H for me, and it was last year too when Tennessee was an 8.5 over under out of Vegas to win 9 or 7 games. I thought was an easy selection at 9. I did think that they would win 10 last year, very likely. So I wasn't stunned. I didn't know that they would beat Alabama necessarily, but I thought that they would somehow manage their way to 10 wins. But 9-3 is where the FPI has them. And of all the projections, where would you rank FPI, Caleb, in accuracy and what they do?
So we're talking PFF, FPI, SP plus.
Well, and the AP and coaches poll. I mean,
and AP and coaches poll. If we're going based on last year, you go SP plus. I would say if you like SP plus got it relatively right last year more than any other. But on an overall scale, I'd still go SP plus. I'd go SP plus, which should encourage Tennessee fans.
No, it should. SP plus is like Tennessee for quite some time. 4 Downs now is brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports, and we're taking a look at the top true freshmen that are entering Tennessee's program and what kind of impact they can have. Let's go.
4 downs.
4 questions.
4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I got some new insight on one of these cats, by the way, Caleb. Like from someone within the program. Yeah, like really good stuff. So I can add to this. So this column up, and it is by Caleb Calhoun on offthehooksports.com. The 5 freshmen most likely to make an impact in 2023, and it's brought to you by Zen Sports, the new sportsbook in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares. On Zen Sports, what you see is what you get with their cash rewards program. You get a lot of cash, like Nico, who we'll talk about. For a welcome bonus, earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the code HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting, keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that, and refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume. cash rewards too. Zen Sports bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you bet on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Hey, Cooper Mays, what down is it, sir?
Coop here, first down.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Perfect. First guy up to bat, number 5, as rated by Caleb Calhoun, is Nico Iamaleava. He is the projected backup, and I think that Joe Milton's going to be the guy as long as he's healthy. But you've got him at number 5. Why is that, Caleb Calhoun?
Well, Joe Milton's already got hurt once since he's been at Tennessee. Actually, he's gotten hurt twice since he's been at Tennessee.
True.
Combine that with there's still persisting questions about his ability to hold the starting job for the whole year, and the massive amount of hype behind Nico Iamaleava. I think all of these things makes it likely Iamaleava is going to play at least a few drives that are meaningful this year. Now, I don't know if that's because Joe Milton gets hurt or something like that, but I could see Milton look, they're going to have to use Milton a little more in the running game than they used Hendon Hooker last year. And that's kind of a little disturbing for Tennessee because Hooker was actually, I think you agree, was probably even though Milton's bigger, Hooker was a more fluid runner than Joe Milton does.
No question. And I was watching a couple runs. I guess it was because of this morning that it's T. Martin Day, 15 days until the Vols kick it off. But definitely when T got up and going, he was fast. And I think Joe Milton's going to be the same way. But there was sort of, he wanted to stay in the pocket. I think Joe Milton wants to stay in a pocket. When I was watching T, I was trying to place him somewhere on the Hooker Milton scale. And I thought he was closer to Hooker as a fluid runner, but not as fluid as Hooker. And there was a little bit of that stiff hips because he's used to being a quarterback and not an air quotes athlete out on the field. So, yeah, I think Joe Milton will be a good runner, but it's going to be a different runner. And he's got one thing that he's going to have to reconcile, Caleb, and that is he's going to be able to put his shoulder down and punish people. But we all know you don't want your quarterback repeatedly putting his shoulder down and punishing people.
Right, exactly. I mean, you need that shoulder when they're trying to throw.
Even if it's the left one and it gets injured, you need both shoulders because you need to be in the game.
Right. And so that bolsters the point that Milton's likely to get banged up at some point. And we're not talking a Hendon Hooker freak accident, ACL tear. I mean, that's always possible. But I think Milton is more likely to take a hit that sidelines him for a drive or two. And so I think you're going to have some games where Iamaleava is going to come in and have a couple of meaningful drives. And that alone puts him on this list. Because funny enough, I talked about this on the column. Tennessee loses a lot of production. They also had a top 10 recruiting class, and they weren't where they needed to be talent-wise yet. You would think that would lead to a lot of true freshmen starting, but I had kind of a hard time finding which true freshman could have an impact this year.
Yep. This guy will.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren.
Well, that's Jacob Warren. Jacob, what are you doing, man? Coop, what down?
Cooper Mays here, second down.
Now it's your turn, Jacob. You can go ahead and tell people what to do. We'll work you in there.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren, asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
He does. Everybody's on the program on a Friday. Ethan Davis will have an impact. I was told to somebody within the program, though, that all of the talk of him being further along and being a major impact player is a little premature. They really like what they've seen out of McCallan Castles. He's physical, probably faster than he gets credit for, really smart, has absorbed the offense. So maybe a week ago when Ethan Davis was talking in front of the media and was mature and has been better than most people thought, I think a lot of people, especially recruitniks, got excited about the 4-star tight end who reminds some people of Antonio Gates, the former Chargers tight end who was a basketball player and had made that transition. That's kind of like Davis. But this is going to be McCallan Castle's year as the second tight end. That still doesn't mean that Ethan Davis won't make some plays, and it doesn't mean that Tennessee can't be very good with Ethan Davis next year. But he'll have an impact this year, no question.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think there's Ethan Davis, there's a lot of elements you can use with him in the passing game that doesn't apply to a lot of other tight ends. Now, I would say Jacob Warren is a more complete tight end because you can trust Jacob Warren to line it up and block if you need to, which is I have to bring this up a lot. Guys, newsflash, blocking is still a part of playing tight end. It's as much a part of playing tight end as being a receiver. So it's why I don't have Antonio Gates in like my top 5 list of tight ends of all time, because he was a liability.
Well, and he chose not to. He had the size and the ability. I mean, that's the frustrating part about Gates is that, I didn't think that Jason Witten really had the fantastic ability to be a great blocker, but he shielded at least. I thought that Gates a lot of times just thought it was like a speed bump. He didn't really want to do it. He just wanted to get over it. Let's go to third down.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Khalifa Keith.
Second down. Wait, this is not the Colorado drive. This is not Colorado, Missouri, 1990.
Third down. Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Keeping me straight, Caleb Calhoun. Khalifa Keith. Speaking of alliteration, Caleb Calhoun, Khalifa Keith.
First name is John, though. But
John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
All right, I got just a quick funny story. My younger brother's name is John Jacob Calhoun, and his name is my name too. All right, sorry.
Hi, Khalifa Keith.
Okay, so Khalifa Keith, there's no true goal line back this year outside of Khalifa Keith. Princeton Fant held that role last year because Lynette Whitehead got hurt. Fant is gone. Whitehead has transferred. Who else you got other than Khalifa Keith? So I think Khalifa Keith is going to be when it's 3rd and 1 on the goal line. When Josh Heupel last year, which give him credit for this, Dave, Josh Heupel was willing to line up under center last year on those goal line plays and pound it in. I mean, that was old school Philip Fulmer on the goal line. And he did that with Princeton Fan a lot. He's going to do that with Khalifa Keith a lot this year. That's why he's going to have an impact.
Give me a good number 15 jersey. Give me a good number. Who is number 15?
Jawan Jennings.
Okay, Jawan Jennings. I'm going to call myself out. Nobody did on the message board, but I know that T. Martin wore 17. I'm sorry. I'm trying to write a book about the guy, and it's been a crazy thing. I misspoke earlier. It's not T. Martin Day. It is Jawan Jennings Day. Travis says that Keith is going to be another Travis Henry. I'm not completely sure about that, and I don't think they need him to be that, Travis. I think that's a little strong.
Travis Henry was like, we always forget this because Henry was such a bowling ball when he took carries. He had speed too. He actually had solid breakaway speed. If you got Travis Henry in the secondary, you could trust him to outrun a lot of defensive backs. And you can't really trust Khalifa Keith to do that. Now, I mean, we forget Travis Henry was
Travis just didn't have he didn't have the wiggle. That's what he didn't have. I mean, aside from that, he was everything that Jamal Lewis was, except for the wiggle. But with the wiggle, Jamal Lewis, like you're suddenly grasping air. Whereas if you don't grasp air and you go after him, you might get trucked. Henry didn't have the wiggle, but Henry was fast. I don't think they're going to ask Khalifa Keith to do those sort of things. And Travis Henry too. Let's remember this. In today's football, there's only one elite back, maybe 2 in the NFL that get the majority of the carries for their team. Short of that, there's like the next level down of very good backs. Travis Henry in the NFL was kind of that next level down of very, very good backs. So if Khalifa Keith is half as good as Travis Henry, then the ball has got an absolute steal, right?
Oh yeah, and Henry was a Pro Bowler in the NFL. We forget that. He made a Pro Bowl with Buffalo. I remember, I know this as a Titans fan, Travis Henry was there Vince Young's rookie year, and that was a heck of a rushing offense, Vince Young and Travis Henry together. And then there was Vince Young and Chris Johnson 2 years later, which was even more fun.
Nope, no doubt about it. And let's get to what down are we on there, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Gotcha, brother. And get well soon. We want that to happen. So we got the final 2 guys at Jordan Matthews and Arian Carter, both on defense. So I'll ask you this question of those freshmen. I think you clearly believe, because you have them rated 2 and 1, that those 2 will have the biggest impact. I wouldn't argue with your list at all, except that I think that Keith's impact is easier because the position he would play would be a little bit easier. So I might have him at 2. Jordan Matthews, I really like at corner, but I will tell you this, the freshman, if you wanted to do one and then like a big space in the copy of the story you wrote, you could do that because it's Arian Carter and then it's everybody else based off freshman and what I've been told.
Yeah, Arian Carter's a clear-cut number one. It's very clear he's going to be in the rotation this year. The expectations for him and the hype is through the roof. So that's the only one of these lists that's not a projection at this point. That's a no, I know he's going to really start. He's going to effectively start. He may not be technically a starter in the depth chart, but he's going to effectively start because, as you know, Dave, Josh Heupel and Tim Banks run 3 linebackers in a rotation, even if they have 2 on the field at the same time. They did that last year with Juwan Mitchell, Jeremy Banks, and Aaron Beasley.
Yep. I mean, let's put it this way. If we weren't crazy covering fall camp and if players were more available, this would be the time to roll out the Arian Carter feature story. That would be what's coming out in Sunday's paper, the old way of playing that, because there is no question he's going to be a factor. David said, love this show. Put that up. We appreciate that. Hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't at this point. And what freshman are you most excited about seeing this upcoming season? Maybe it is Nico. Some people still want to see Nico, but the guy that you're going to be most likely to be most excited about at the end of November is Arian Carter, and it's not close.
I haven't seen freshman hype for expectations for this year, for the year they're a freshman. I'm going to say since Eric Berry. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to go there. I'm not saying Arian Carter's the next Eric Berry, but I think who's a player between Arian Carter and Eric Berry that's a true freshman at Tennessee that you expected to have an impact as a true freshman?
I thought the hype was stupid crazy. I'm not agreeing with it, but I thought it was stupid crazy on the McKenzie kid, Khalil McKenzie.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't have Khalil projected to start, though, because there was still Danny O'Brien on that team and Shai Tuttle. And
it's defensive tackle where you usually don't come in and start. I mean, I agree with you, but as far as the chatter, I thought the chatter was as strong as Berry.
Maybe Butch Jones was trying to create chatter as strong as Berry. That could be what that was. Well,
there's a lot of truth.
I don't know. I remember all I remember. I was actually at the Beacon at the time, and I remember covering the Tennessee opener against Cal. And I'll never forget you. I didn't know you at the time, Dave, but me and you were probably in the same huddle. And I will never forget. Everybody was questioning, why are you starting? I think it was Rashawn Fellows. Or no, or was it Gerard Parrish? But one of those was starting over Eric Berry.
I'm Brian Fellows. Do you remember that from Saturday Night Live? I'm Brian Fellows.
I do not.
You don't remember Tracy Morgan's bit?
That's crazy.
Oh, my gosh. All I'm saying is you were probably in that group, Dave, questioning why are you not starting Eric Berry against Cal? Because it seemed like I wasn't dialed into practices like the other reporters were at the time, but it seemed very clear that Berry was the best player in the secondary immediately, the second he stepped onto campus.
Did he not start against Cal?
No. I think it was Gerard Parrish that they started against Cal. And it was like one of the it's viewed as it was a typical Fulmer, he's a freshman not ready. And then at halftime, I think they put Eric Berry in against Cal. It's like, all right, we're done.
Didn't they give up was it the end around to Deshaun Jackson that they gave up? Maybe
they gave up a punt return for a touchdown.
Was it the punt?
Oh, yeah. When Jeff Tedford basically told Deshaun Jackson, I will never forget this. He said, Tennessee's defense over pursues on every play. So just hesitate.
I had some 4-down questions too that I was going to run through, but I'm just going to go to one since we've discussed most of them. What's the best season for Nico Maleava? Personally, as a person, as a player, it's probably not to get thrown out there. I mean, the worst would be Joe Milton gets hurt the day before the Florida game and you're out there in Gainesville and that's your first start. So that'd be the worst to me. What's the best for him personally? Is it to sit the whole time? I think it would be probably to play a couple of meaningful drives, but still, you talk about meaningful drives. What's a meaningful drive? Is a second quarter drive against Austin Peay a meaningful drive? Certainly a second quarter drive against most any Tennessee opponent would be. You would think that if things are going well, they might throw him in there against Vanderbilt to get a, quote, meaningful drive. But meaningful drive is truly the game is on the line. So, I mean, it would be nice if he got that, and I'm sure he would like that. But that would mean that Tennessee's not doing so great. It would be best for him personally. What would be best for him personally?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think meaningful drive. I just don't know how you do that, but without Joe Milton getting hurt. But I think Milton is going to get hurt a couple of times. This isn't, if you remember Chris Leak and Tim Tebow at Florida, Tebow came in on meaningful plays at Florida the year that Chris Leak was the starter. But that was different because Tebow was such a change of pace from Chris Leak that it was hard to figure out. And only John Chavis was the only person in the world that didn't have any idea that Tebow was going to run the ball on 4th and 1 when he came in for a change of pace. But I think there's not really a change of pace from Nico to Joe, or from Joe to Nico. So I think you don't hope for Joe to get hurt, obviously. But I think for Nico, he does need to play a meaningful drive, but that's only happening if Joe loses his starting job or if Joe gets hurt, and neither of those things you root for to happen. So
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think there would be a change of pace. I think Nico's a more fluid runner. I think that you're talking about T. Martin compared to Tony Robinson as far as fluidity and running style. So I do think he would more naturally escape the pocket. It's not worlds different, but I think it's significant. Tennessee is going to go 9-3 according to the FPI. Yes, FPI.
Not FBI.
Yes, FBI or some other acronym. Here we go.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
We like the FPI, don't we? We think it's pretty accurate. Yes, we do. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. What the H, brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Tennessee an 87.5% odds to win in Nashville against the Cavs. Austin P at home, 98.4%. How about Florida? This one is a bit surprising. And it's brought to you by Andy Mason. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best prices and service in the biz. Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. He's got my real estate biz. He should have yours right there in East Tennessee. 40 years of experience in that market. He's awesome. Tennessee, according to the FBI, is an underdog against Florida. 48.9% chance to win. That's technically an underdog.
Yes. That is.
Well, Vegas have Tennessee as an underdog. 1.5 points.
I try to think about this in the past, and I'm looking back through history. I don't know if Tennessee, as long as I've been covering and as long as you've been covering, I can't remember a time that Tennessee was ever favored against Florida in the Swamp. Maybe 2017. That would be the only time I can think of that they may have been favored against Florida in the Swamp. And I'm looking at it now. Somebody else, if you look it up before me, let me know. But I don't know who was favored in the Swamp in 2017. That's kind of the big question. But outside of that, yeah.
By the way, SC Scout guy, so we'll get a viewpoint from outside of Tennessee. He likes the Gamecocks, and who can blame him? They're rising, we would think, under Shane Beamer. Says, honestly, everyone I talk to that is not a ball fan thinks 9-3 is about right. I don't hate 9-3. I just, if I had to bet 10 or 8, I would take 10. But here we go. I mean, it gets started right now that they are underdogs according to the FPI. 48.9% chance of beating Florida. UTSA, 86.9% chance. I thought was a little bit high. South Carolina, 77.9% chance. SC Scout guy, sorry about that, but I'm not surprised. A&M a little bit closer, 66% chance of beating the Aggies at home. This one is one of the more stunning ones. Alabama, just a 15.2% chance of beating the Tide in Tuscaloosa after winning a year ago. What? I mean, that seems very low to me. I mean, I was going to think maybe 25%, 30%, but 15% chance?
particularly when Alabama should be worse this year. Based on FPI data points and the way they do this, Alabama should be considered a little bit, actually significantly worse this year than they were last year. And so that kind of throws me off. And don't forget this. 2 years ago, Tennessee was within one score of Alabama in the fourth quarter. And that was when Tennessee was still rebuilding under Josh Heupel. So, yeah, this one's kind of a little shocking. And I'll also say this. One of Nick Saban's biggest weaknesses, Dave, if you looked at throughout his history as a defensive coach, is what he does his first time facing a quarterback that he's never faced before. And this is going to be his first time facing Joe Milton or Nico Iamaleava.
Here's the other thing. As he kind of goes a little bit more ball control, Saban does. I always thought the one knock on him was that he would take the air out of the ball, sit on the ball a little bit in the second half. And it almost crept up and cost him, especially against Lane Kiffin in 2009. Then he went to the up tempo with Lane Kiffin, and that wasn't the case. It was Alabama up by 28 or 30 in the second half. So they didn't do that as much. But I thought there were times they had a 10, 14, 17-point lead, and they kind of sat on it. Does he go back to that thinking? If he does, I think that's good for Tennessee in any up-tempo offense. But 15%.
That's crazy.
Kentucky, 53% chance of winning. That's in the Commonwealth. Too high, too low to you, Caleb?
I think it's just right. I think it's exactly where it should be. I think it's close to a coin flip. And this is where, I think Kentucky is so much more dangerous than we realize because it's on the road, because Kentucky's coming off a bye, because Kentucky has a better quarterback than last year. I don't care what anybody says about Will Levis. I don't care what Mel Kiper says. Devin Leary's better than Will Levis. And because they have a better offensive coordinator this year.
UConn, 96% chance of winning. Tracy Morgan, what does that say about the Huskies?
You suck.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Wasn't that the guy? Wait, Tracy Morgan didn't say that.
No, that was Happy Gilmore.
No, yeah. By the way, greatest.
Yeah, jackass.
Shooter McGavin is the greatest movie choke job of all time in sports. Blew a 4-stroke lead on the final 6 holes when Happy Gilmore had a broken shoulder.
That's true. That's true. He really dropped the ball, and most people would withdraw, but his grandmother's house was on the line, so he had to keep playing. It's funny. Back in the day, Randy Edsel used to listen to my show on Facebook when we would broadcast on a local radio station and Facebook. I don't know if he's listening or not. Is he the head coach of UConn once again?
No, Jim Mora Jr. is already kind of doing a good job rebuilding them. They were 6-6 last year.
Yeah, okay. Well, you're not going to beat Tennessee. Missouri 63% chance that Tennessee beats the Tigers. Now, this is going to be a revenge game for the Tigers. They're fired up, and they got embarrassed last year. Maybe the score run up. But I'll tell you, Caleb, I just don't. It's a match of two guys who do similar things in terms of being offensive coaches, and I think one's a lot better at it. And I think Josh Heupel will win this and win it easily. So I guess 66% chance is about right.
Tennessee has crossed the 60-point threshold 2 years in a row against Missouri. They did it in 2021, which to me was Josh Heupel's coming out party to reveal. That was the first game that kind of revealed Tennessee may have something special with Heupel when they beat Missouri 63-28. And then last year, 66-24. Missouri, I think, will be better this year. The game's at Missouri. And don't forget, they were in the game with Tennessee. It was 28-24 at one point last year before Tennessee went off. But I don't think that's happening again.
Georgia and Neyland, the Vols have a 25% chance of winning. I don't understand how you can have less of a chance to beat. I don't understand how Alabama can be 15%, 25%, but that's what the numbers say. Vanderbilt at home, an 88% chance of Tennessee winning. So you would think they would do that. They've got the final record at 9-3. We are going to hopefully be joined by Fred White next. So stay tuned, hit that like and subscribe button. And the big thing is turn the notifications on. Got a couple of ball reports with Jacob Warren that we're going to drop This afternoon, he is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We're off and running, and it feels like football season. We want you to be a part. Tell a friend. Notifications on, guys. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor, that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place, with a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Say something insightful for a moment, Caleb.
Taylor Swift has released the cover for Taylor's version of the 1989 album, guys. Who's excited about that? I know Dave is.
Not me. Checking in on Fred White. So hopefully he'll be able to join us here momentarily, as I know Fred has a lot going on, but we'll connect with him. And guess who we're going to talk to next week? I will go ahead and provide a hint. He played defensive end. He had a great career in the NFL. His team is often spelled by its fans. Team name.
His professional team, you mean?
Professional. Yeah, they don't go VOLS, Vols. But that's not the worst chant in the world.
Pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
Who is that?
It is Sean Ellis.
Yes, it rhymes with Ron Dellis. But there'll be a couple of Jacob Warrens up there too. And Fred and I had a chance on the Celebrate 98 series brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, tncidercompany.com. Use the promo code HAT and you will get some free swag with any purchase. So you can purchase their cider just about any place in the United States of America. We did kind of a hall of fame and who's the toughest, who was the hardest worker, the most competitive, but you couldn't pick Al Wilson. So you could not pick Al Wilson, and Fred couldn't pick himself to take him out of that equation. So that's what we did. It was pretty cool, and we enjoyed it. That is up on the YouTube page now. So subscribe, like, and turn those notifications on. And Rocky Top Tom says, I'd rather listen to Chinese opera than Taylor Swift. I'm going to back Caleb Calhoun. A very good friend of mine, actually, Stacey Oliver, who just wrote her first couple of pieces for the website. She talked me into listening to the Karma song, and I'm going to give kudos. That's pretty strong. I'm not saying that it's elite singer like a Whitney Houston or even even a Christina Aguilera had a big voice, or an Aretha Franklin. It's not that, but it's better than a Madonna or another female singer from back in the day. So I'm coming around. How about that? Are you stunned right now, Caleb?
Whenever anybody gives her a chance, they fall in love. I never accuse her of having the greatest voice either, but she's got the greatest songwriting ability of all time.
She does. And does she write her own songs? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, she writes them all because she's a genius.
I don't think that you know that. I think you just said that.
Well, she has a writing credit on every one of her songs. So.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Is it her and somebody else, though?
Over the past few years, it's been her and somebody else, but her original first 6 albums was exclusively her.
I didn't know for the longest time that Elton John's partner wrote most of his songs. And by the way, I don't care if you think Elton John's cool or not. You go to one of his concerts in his prime, your mouth's going to drop wide open. He was actually playing at Thompson Bowling Arena. Me and my wife had only been dating for like 3 months. And we drive by and the guy goes, $50 a ticket. And I said, I've got $14. He goes, I'm not taking that. I need at least 50 for the both. And I said, I've got $14. I'm a student. So he let us go in. We were on the 13th row center to see Elton John. Didn't even know he was playing at Thompson Bowling Arena before we saw that. And you talk about an incredible show. Elton John was unbelievable. Fighting? Are we tussling a little bit? Because it appears that's the case.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Let's get what the H.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right. Here's what Deion Sanders did. And if you haven't seen the video or heard about it, it's kind of old school. And I feel like Deion Sanders tries too hard to be old school at times. I really don't know what I would do if he said, you have to call me coach to address me, which he does. I've never called a guy that I've covered coach. He says, you got to call me coach. You can't say Deion. I mean, I've said Phillip, Josh, Wayne, Derek, Butch. I mean, I actually felt goofier about calling a guy Butch than coach. But so here's what happens. A tussle breaks out, which happens in preseason camp. And a book that's coming out, Celebrate 98, will discuss a huge monster ball before the 98 season that a lot of the players believe galvanized that team because the offense was getting pushed around by one of the best defenses in Tennessee football history. So fights happen, and a lot of times they're good. For the record, Josh Heupel does not believe in fighting in practice. That is not allowed. And I think each coach is a little bit different. Probably the younger you are, the less likely you like fighting. The older you are, you're okay with it. So Deion Sanders is okay with it and actually encouraged his players to fight, saying that you're not standing up for your teammates. So let's turn it to Tennessee. Should the Vols be fighting, or should they walk away from a fight, or is there a happy medium? I've been around practice and a lot of fights, well over a dozen, and I've covered probably 1,000 practices. So it's not unusual. It's always just been part of it. I think if Caleb and I, if we had to go outside in the backyard and run into each other 80 times a day for about 20 days during the month of August when it's hot, we would probably fight. So I think it's part of football. Caleb, your thoughts on fighting in preseason camp?
Well, first I want to say it's really rich coming from Deion Sanders, who was notorious for avoiding contact when he played. Like, that was his thing. He didn't even try to learn how to tackle. And so I think that's really rich coming from him. However, when it comes to fighting, I think it depends on how your team is built. And I do think it's a little old school in the sense, you know, when you played in the 90s, there was still the whole toughness wins out in football. And the 98 team was definitely built in that identity. We're tougher than anybody else. But if you are I don't like to use the term finesse, but I do think Tennessee is more of a execution-oriented team now with Josh Heupel. I don't think fighting is as crucial because they're more focused on executing, not just out manning you in one-on-one matchups all the time. And so I think there's a little bit of a difference now. So I don't think it's a big deal that Josh Heupel doesn't like fighting. I mean, it reminds me of Peyton Manning in the NFL. Peyton Manning was obviously about more about out executing you. So he didn't like fighting in practice with his teams. He really didn't. And he even said one time, you fight, you're going to get a 15-yard penalty and cost your team the game. And so it's not like the 90s, 80s tough defensive-minded teams that, the Jimmy Johnson Hurricanes or the 90s Vols or anything like that you wanted to fight because you wanted to reestablish your dominance. Take it to basketball, the bad boy Pistons wanted to fight. They wanted to establish their dominance by fighting. The Bulls didn't want to do that because they had the star power, so they didn't really care.
But you can't back down either, which I think that's what Deion Sanders was talking about. Travis asked, who would win a fight, Dave or Caleb? Let's bring Fred White in, and we'll get Fred's thoughts. Fred, who would win a fight between me and CC Caleb Calhoun? Fred, who do you think would win a fight?
Well, I don't want y'all to fight. First of all, I don't condone violence. But, well, Caleb, you better run. If David grabs you, might be over with. So, this depends on how big the ring is.
Dave is older than me, but he's a workout warrior and he doesn't drink. That's two advantages in his favor that, Well,
I'll go ahead and tell you the answer to the question. It's the 30-second over-under rule. If Caleb stretches it to over 30 seconds, I don't do cardio, so I'm gassed. And then Caleb could just, bounce and move and tap me and tag me and wear me out. If I can get a lick in out of my first 3 swings, I'm going to win.
After that, you're going to be dog tired.
But after that, I'm going to have to lay down and take a nap and say, Caleb, you won.
Oh, my gosh.
What do you think of fighting in practice? And you may have not heard us talking about this, but Deion Sanders chided his players for walking away from a fight in practice. What did you make of that?
Listen, one of the reasons why I knew we were going to be a really good team and we were tough was the fight. You guys, if you have not listened to Celebrate 98, you need to go check it out. We talk about big fights on there, and the one big fight we had before that 98 season was an all-out brawl, offense versus defense, and it was intense. But you also knew one thing. Every last person on your team was tough as nails. You knew that. I remember hearing Coach Foreman say one spring, I think he regretted this after the fact, but said, you know what, guys? It hasn't been one fight reported all spring. I don't understand what's going on. We used to know guys were tough because they would at least go out and have a fight. And right after that, we had about 10 of them. But it was the problem was it was in the public with other people. But it was you told us to fight, coach. We fought. I think he wanted to take that back as soon as possible. But he's right. If your guys are walking away from stuff in practice, it's your teammates. You're not going to take it in the locker room or on the street afterwards. That's what you do. That's how you know whether your guys are going to fight or not in the game. Not just fist fight in the game, but that's the toughness of it. And I get where he was coming from. I understand where he's coming from. And if people have never played the game, you wouldn't understand that. I mean, I've had fights from little league, high school, college, and pro. I've seen those fights. And if you touch somebody on my squad on the defensive side, guess what we're going to do? We're going to scrap.
Yep. I know.
That's the name of the game.
There's no way that you can run into each other 80 times a day, 5 days a week for a month and not want to get in a fight when it's 98 degrees. Robert says brothers fight, period. They do. Here is, in my opinion, the difference. The generation is different. So Fred said the most wise thing way back in the Celebrate 98 series, and I've taken it to heart. Immediately when they walked off the field into the locker room, it was done.
It was it.
Nowadays, I don't know that this generation would have the maturity. I don't want to sound like the old guy. Get off my lawn. I don't know
the old guy right now.
I know. I don't know that they would have the maturity to put it down, Fred, and let it go.
That's part of your coaching in your locker room, though.
Okay.
You got to create that culture in your locker room. If you went into the locker room and brought something in the locker room, back in the day, guys like Tyrone Hines and Joey Kent would stop you immediately. Like, hey, man, we say that for the football field. And here we're family. On that football field, we going against each other. There's a difference. And they established that from the beginning. Bubba Miller and those guys, they weren't going to allow you to do that in the locker room. We weren't in fights in the locker room. Not a lot. I mean, because the older guys nip that in the bud real fast. But that is a testament to what your leadership is like on your football team, because your leadership on your team determines your culture of your team.
Fred, who was on y'all's team that who was the Rocky on y'all's team? The guy that was really small, and then there was a fight, and you're like, wow, I did not know he could last that long in a fight because he just looked so tiny.
He wasn't really small, but it was Fred would be the answer, except for the small part.
I'll say this: it wasn't too many guys on our team that wouldn't scrap with you, and didn't care how big you were. I mean, I've seen linemen go up against linebackers. Most linemen are bigger than linebackers. I've seen DBs go up against receivers, or DBs go up against tight ends, or everything. I mean, we didn't have. Let me say it like this: I don't know about today's game. I can only speak and vouch for my group of my teammates. We didn't have no punks on our team. Whoever you went up against was going to give you a battle. You didn't want to do that. I watched Tyrone Graham, who was probably one of the smallest DBs receiver on the squad, one of the fastest to ever come to Tennessee, fight with Sean Ellis on a daily basis. And Sean Ellis is 6'5", 285, 90 pounds. So there was no back down in none of our guys.
No. Tell me about, and Jimmy said that we sound stupid, don't need players hurt and fighting. No, it's not that. It's not really that simple, because in 98, Fred and Tennessee's defense is absolutely pushing around the Vols offense. They can't get anything done in spring, and then they're halfway through preseason camp, and they are just getting punked. And essentially, Philip Fulmer challenged the offense via Spencer Riley mostly, and he's the one that started it by a waylay he laid on Al, and you don't hit Al and not expect to get hit back. And that really galvanized that team. It would be too strong to say you don't win a championship without that fight, but it did mean an awful lot, Fred.
It meant an awful lot. Hey, Jimmy, you man, I don't know where you played the game in or what level you played it at, and I'm not trying to go at you. I'm just being honest. I haven't had a good football team that I ever played on that we didn't have some fights. Period. Not one. The only team that was horrible was the 2000 San Diego Chargers. We went 1-15, and we fought damn near every day. Only lost more games in one season than I ever lost in my whole life. So, yeah.
Did you win any fights?
I won every last one of my fights. Keep in mind, in 1997, Leonard Little started the season with a cast on his hand. Came from a fight, but he still had a stellar season. And was still.
You remember who he hit?
I don't remember exactly who he hit, but I just know it was a big fight. It was a brawl there too.
Wow. Have you ever lost a fight in preseason camp?
Dave, I ain't lost too many fights in my whole life.
I didn't think so.
Fred, I was talking.
And listen, I'm not trying to act like I'm Mike Tyson and them, but the difference between me and the next person is I'm willing to do a lot more than some people are willing to do to win. Especially when it comes to a fight. I have never heard of a fair fight. Not ever in my life. Yeah. My grandfather taught me that one.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a fair fight. I mean,
because if you're putting your hands on me, that means you have intentions on hurting me. So I have intentions on hurting you at that point.
What was it? Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know if y'all saw the movie where Jack Sparrow and Orlando Bloom's character. Orlando Bloom's like, in a fair fight, I'd kill you, and Jack Sparrow was like, well, that's not much incentive for me to fight fair, then, is it?
I mean, the word fight. I mean, unless you're in a boxing match and you got gloves on, there's rules, right? But if this is just a fight, sometimes there's not a rule to fighting. But the rule is different. It's a rule when you're fighting your teammates. You don't go below the belt. You don't try to hurt someone. It is really just it's a mano-a-mano macho type of thing, really. And it's finding out if your teammates are tough or not. If you when you first got to Tennessee, somebody was going to try you. And the guy who tried me when I first got here as a freshman was Chester Ford. And Chester Ford is one of the strongest guys that ever played at UT. I mean, he's a fullback who will knock your head off. I never forget him trying to scrap with me. But I knew one thing. I'm not scared of anybody. I'm going to make sure you understand I'm not scared of anybody. I may lose this battle, but I'm going to win the war. Because you got to see me the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I'm going to win one of them battles. All I need is one win.
So you were okay. Fred's role, let me give a little bit of insight, was oftentimes mentoring the freshmen. So how when freshmen would be tested, be it Chester Ford fighting you or some other freshman, what was your role in terms of, I don't mind you testing this freshman, but don't take it too far? Where was the line crossed? Where was that line?
That was the one thing we never crossed that line. And usually the guy who tried you ended up being your big brother. To this day, me and Chester Ford are like, that's my dude. I love that guy to death, and he loves me to death. And he'll bring it up sometimes. Man, I had to try you to see if you had it in heart. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And he realized I had heart, so he took me on his wing at that point, and been my big brother ever since. But that's how it works. I mean, you got to test the guy, see if you got what kind of heart you got. You don't have any heart, I don't want you on my team anyway. I mean, you can still be on the team. I'm not a coach. I can't tell you to leave, but if you back down, guys are gonna know that you might back down in the game. You ain't gonna fight. All the guys who you knew had some toughness about them, you knew they're gonna be tough in the football game.
It's tough to get us all together sometimes because we're spread out across the nation on Off the Hook Sports, but we are going to be in Dallas for SEC Media Day. So maybe Fred could come along, and as like a team building thing, he could just beat the hell out of Caleb.
I got other ways of testing Caleb. I don't want to fight him.
Well, I'm the guy, I will say, y'all can younger generation shame me because I'm the guy, if I were on the practice field, I'm not fighting. But if you're fighting, it's going on the internet. And it's going on the internet because of me. I'm the guy I will make sure to appropriately film it from the right angle, and World Star is going to get it.
Hey, man. So I don't fight no more unless I have to. If I'm fighting, that means my life depends upon it. That is the only reason I'll be fighting.
I wouldn't be able to move for 5 days. You remember how you used to get in a fight, Fred, and the next day you were kind of sore, and especially I did. And when I was 18, 19, I'd get in a fight, and the next day I was kind of sore, and now I wouldn't be able to walk.
Well, Dave, I'm gonna tell you the difference between me going to the gym and you going to the gym is two different things. I got two nephews who I need to make sure they understand that Uncle Fred is still the dude. So if you ever try me, I'm gonna make sure I can whoop you. That's why I go to the gym. I go to the gym just in case somebody tries me and I have to defend myself. I go do kickboxing because of that. I go do Muay Thai because of that. I need to make sure that if I ain't stronger than you, I got other ways of beating you, just in case I have to have a situation where I have to have hand-to-hand combat. Plain and simple.
Just for the record, Fred White goes to do chest day, lays down. What are you using? How much weight are you using for reps on chest?
It depends. We do a different type of workout. We start out at 185 for 20, 215 for 225 for 15. Then I go 275 for 10, 315 for 5. Then I go back down to 225 and I do 2 sets of as many as you can do. The goal is to get 20.
Good gracious. I could do 185 maybe 5 times.
Fred, were you the if I could do an analogy, were you the Steven Jackson on the Vols? And for those who don't get the reference, when Ron Artest went into the stands in the greatest fight of all time, the Pacers-Pistons brawl, Steven Jackson was like, I don't care who started it. My brother's in the stands, and I'm going to go beat up some fans. Was that you?
Unequivocally, without a doubt. That's my teammate. That's my brother. He might be wrong, but I'm not going to let him go through that situation and get beat up. And that's my teammate. I'm going to make sure I go up there to get him out of there. If I got to fight my way to get him out of there, I'm going to fight my way to get him out of there. If I got to fight to get to him, I'm gonna do that too. But I will tell him he's wrong at the end of the day. In the moment, I'm gonna make sure I save my teammate. Plain and simple.
Well, Steven Jackson didn't try to get him out of there. Steven Jackson was like, "I want some punches in here too."
I mean, I'm gonna throw some. If it requires me throwing some punches, I would have done the same thing. That's my teammate. I'm gonna make sure he's good. Now, is it right or wrong? It may be wrong, but I'll guarantee you one thing: that's my guy. That's my teammate. I'm going with him. Same thing Dion is saying. If my teammate is fighting the DBs and they all jumping my guy, don't you run away from that. You better go over there and help him. Yep. He needs to know you got his back. Plain and simple.
Fred, by the way, Rocky Top Tom says personal umbrella policies don't cover liability arising from fighting. But if they did, Fred would be the guy to call. How do we get in good hands, Fred?
Well, listen, you need another type of policy for that, by the way. you can be in good hands if you give us a call at 770-381-0367. You can also look us up on every social media platform there is, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Fred White Allstate. And just as hard as I hit on the football field, we hit the same thing trying to get you a good quote. So we try our best to make everything work for you guys. And I go fight for you just like I'll go fight for my own teammates.
Nice. Toughest fight you were ever in?
Toughest fight I was ever in?
On the field, on the field or in practice?
On the field or in practice.
Yeah, not in some other situation.
Yeah, all right. No, those weren't tough anyway, Dave. But I'm just kidding. But
I had a buddy exactly like Fred, like his size and his build. He wasn't nearly as fast. And I was always the smart aleck that would start a fight and he would finish it. I think that's why Fred and I have this, like, we have this chemistry because I feel like I've known him since I was in high school because he reminds me of my buddy that would finish the fights. And smart aleck Dave might get knocked out, but I knew that this guy would finish it. But
the toughest guy I went up against in practice, we didn't fight. It was just the toughest guy I had to go up against. When we did the Tennessee drill, if anybody knows, it's like the old Oklahoma drill. It's the same thing. We just call it Tennessee drill. You take a receiver and a DB, and you go up against each other. I got to beat the block to get to the running back that's running the ball behind him. The toughest guy I had to go up against was David Martin. David Martin ended up being a tight end in the NFL. He was a really big receiver at UT, and he was very strong too. But I had to go up against David Martin because it was no other receiver that could. I could ragdoll anybody else. Let's be honest. I don't care if it was Bobby Graham. I don't care if it's Peerless, Cedric. None of those guys could block me. The only guy that had a chance of blocking me was David Martin. And that was the best battle I would have when it comes to Tennessee drill. Now, the best fight I've ever had, the toughest fight I've ever had was when I was playing the XFL, and there was an offensive lineman from Auburn. We got into a tussle in practice because he hit me after the whistle. And we fought. I mean, it was a fist fight. And I just remember a few plays later, they ran a play, and I knew he was pulling. Well, I didn't know he was pulling until I actually read the play before the play started. And I knew he was pulling, and I beat him to the punch. And I hit a 320-pound dude in the chest and knocked him flat. So needless to say, I won the battle. He might have won. I won the war. He won the battle.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So let's change gears a little bit because I want to get your thoughts. As the Johnny Manziel documentary came out, Caleb and I have watched it. Have you seen it yet?
I have. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's good. The problem I had with it is that it was supposed to be the truth or whatever. And then like only the last 10 minutes dealt with his issues. I thought that they could have gone a little bit deeper in that, but that's just me. But they talked about how Johnny Manziel changed the expectations at A&M. He changed the type of money that came into the program. Mm-hmm. Totally different dudes. But to me, that sounded a lot like what Peyton Manning did to Tennessee. Fair comparison?
We had some really good players before Peyton came, and we've had some really good ones after Peyton came. But I think Peyton Manning's class changed UT, in my opinion, forever. That was the number one recruiting class. You got receivers that were the top receivers in the country that came here. Marcus Nash, Pillis Price being one of the top guys. But the Peyton that he came in my class, the class after. But I think having Peyton Manning on campus changed a lot for UT. You knew you had a guy who was going to be a great quarterback. Had done a lot of good things in his freshman year, and coming in as a recruit. Jamal Lewis talks about it all the time too. He was like, man, his dad was like, Peyton Manning's gonna stay for another year. Hey man, you need to go to Tennessee. You need to go to Tennessee because you got Peyton Manning right in front of you. They're not gonna be able to stack the box with Peyton as your quarterback. It changes a lot of things. We got offensive lineman. Jarvis Reeder was the number one offensive lineman in the country. He was a super five or something like that in the country. He was the number one tackle in the country. He came to Tennessee, that same class with Peyton and those guys. Terry Fair came from Arizona. You look at Andy McCullough. He was one of the top receivers. So was Greg Kyler. All these guys came to UT as some of the top players, that same class. I think that class is a class that changed Tennessee forever when it comes to like get to the point of winning SEC championships and national championship. We don't win a national championship without some of those guys that were from that class. I mean, that's those guys are what started that 95 class and that group that was already there. That group changed football at Tennessee forever, in my opinion. It made us tougher. They taught us how to win, and they gave us the culture. You came in as number one class, but you had to follow the rules of everybody else. We got rules in this locker room. We got leadership in this locker room. And you got to wait your turn to be a leader. And I think those things are what helped us get to the point of winning the national championship. But yeah, Peyton Manning coming here absolutely changed it.
So you're telling me that, sorry to interrupt, Caleb, but I want to get you in here. Are you telling me that Jamal Lewis probably doesn't come to Tennessee if Peyton Manning goes to the NFL in 97?
He's probably going to Nebraska.
Wow. Pretty darn insightful right there. Mr. Calhoun?
Fred, it's funny you said one thing about you got to follow the same rules no matter what. Do you think that's something that may have derailed Manziel and Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M in the sense that it was very clear to me from the documentary? They said there's one set of rules for Johnny Manziel and then another set of rules for the rest of the team.
I think it was part of their downfall. I think it's one of the reasons why Kevin Sumlin is no longer there. He's my cousin too, by the way. But
wow, did not know that.
Yeah, he's my cousin.
Like first cousin?
No, he's like my third cousin, but
Gotcha.
He's my cousin. But yeah, I think that was part of the downfall as well because the guys that came behind him couldn't do those things, and even letting him do those things, I think, was part of the reason why he was derailed. You know what I mean? That makes you let a guy do all those things as a freshman and a sophomore, gets to the NFL and gets more money, man, you can put money in someone's hand, it's going to make them more of what they already are. There was no coming back for him. After I saw that documentary, I realized that I was like, man, I remember having a conversation with someone who was a part of the Browns organization, and I had already heard some of the things about Johnny Manziel and his partying. And the first thing I told him was, if you sign this guy, based on what I've heard about him, you need to sign someone from his team. You need to draft another guy from his team to kind of help keep him in line because he's gonna need that. Of course, they didn't listen to me. And
I'm gonna make reference to a story you told me a long time ago. So if I've messed this up, let me know. But it was your senior year before the bowl game. You guys already had a national title in your pocket, and you're not really playing for a championship against Nebraska that year.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys decided to have a pop in the hotel lobby, maybe, and Philip Fulmer came up and said, "I really can't do anything about it now, I don't guess."
They knew all those guys were already gone.
I know. So, I mean, do you recall that story? Because it was there's a comparison in that you guys were established, you guys were superstars, and at some point you can't outgrow the discipline.
No, I think that we had never had an opportunity to celebrate New Year's. You know what I mean? So guys was like, man, we're going to celebrate New Year's this year. Everybody there were leaving anyway. I mean, I was a senior. Some of the other guys were juniors, but they knew they were gone.
Dion.
You know, and man, we sat down and had us a drink. What could they do? Like, it wasn't no rule that we couldn't have one, so we did.
True. However, from what you heard, even though you were gone in the NFL, I thought Philip Fulmer let discipline slide a little bit. And that if you were a player, I had one guy tell me, he said, my roommate got kicked out for having 3 failed drug tests for marijuana. I probably had 22, but this guy was a starter and a big time player.
I don't know the answer to that one because I was not a guy who was failing drug tests.
Okay.
That was something I was going to do. I was not going to fail a drug test and go home and had to face my mom or embarrass my family. So I don't know who failed or passed. And the guys that I know that failed ended up not being at UT.
But was there? What I'm asking is, did you hear of a mindset and a culture within the program that if you were a true playmaker, you could get away with stuff?
I didn't have that in my locker room that I know of.
Not your locker room. Not your locker room.
If it was, I wouldn't have known about it because that wasn't my culture, and that wasn't the culture of my locker room that I knew of. And every test that I took, I passed. And the guys who I know that got kicked off for failing drug tests, some good football players, some really good football players. And I don't want to name any names. They were superstars in their own right and could have been big time guys. So yeah, I know some guys who got kicked off that were great football players for failing drug tests. So I don't know that, everybody's story is different, and maybe he changed after us. I don't know. But I know that when I was in school, there was a few guys that got kicked out of school, and I don't want to say no names because I'm not trying to bring in a negative light to them. However, if you go back and you look at some of the top players that got kicked off the squad, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And those guys could have literally changed history at Tennessee. We could have possibly won more than one national championship with those guys being a part of the team.
By the way, everybody has to report to the facility at 2:00. Our Off the Hook Sports test. We got a P test coming up. So
I know I'm going to pass.
Caleb, are you going to pass it?
Fred, can I borrow? Never mind.
I know I'm going to pass. I guarantee you.
I'm just going to say it is legal where I live. So,
Caleb is stoned as a bat right now.
Is this Tennessee? I didn't know it was legal in Tennessee.
I don't live in Tennessee.
Yeah. Caleb's all out there. We got people in 3 states.
Caleb, where are you?
Caleb's up in Maryland.
I'm in the DMV.
Oh, it is legal in DMV. It is.
Yeah. All 3, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. It's legal in all 3.
I'm looking at this the chat over here on the side, and he says there was a tight end that would have been a Pro Bowler. And I definitely agree.
Dustin Moore.
And he was one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. Yep. Still to this day. I never forget the first time I ever saw him catch a pass in 7-on-7. And I watched the tight end, 240 pounds, split the safeties. And I'm talking about safeties, Ray Austin and Torrey Noel, 2 guys who are really good football players and playing in the NFL. I watched this guy, 6'4", 240 pounds, catch a post route and split the safety and not run them to the touchdown. I never seen anything like that before. I never seen a guy that big run that fast. He got kicked off the squad. I'm not going to say why. You can go back and read those things for yourself. But he is one of the guys that was one of the best players I've ever seen. So if there was a double standard, he would have been a guy that you would have had a double standard for.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. He would have been – I'll go ahead and say it. He would have been – help me with this, Caleb. You know history. I think he would have been the best tight end in Tennessee football history. There weren't a lot of great ones. There really weren't as far as productive guys. He would have been a guy that you worked into the game plan, Fred. You made sure to get him the ball.
He was the first tight end I ever saw that big run that fast. He was a 4'4" guy at 6'4", 240 pounds, man. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Now, guys are more athletic now, those type of things. You got those big guys that can run like that now. But back then, he was an anomaly. I had never seen anything like that before. He was one of those guys that I called home about and say, hey, man, I just watched this tight end at 6'4", 240 pounds outrun 2 safeties. And my uncle was like, that's not possible. I'm like, man, listen, I'm telling you. Then the first football game of that season, we play against UNLV, and we run a tight end reverse, and he scores.
I remember that.
70-some yard pass. I mean, about 70-some yard play. They did call it back for blocking the back or something like that, but he outran their entire defense and secondary 60-something yards for a touchdown. So I'm not the only person that got a chance to see that.
What happened to Dustin, Fred? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on somebody else's issues in their lives or what happened when they go, like whatever. But I know that he's a good friend of mine to this day. I'm still proud of him as being my teammate, and he's always going to be my teammate. But I know what I saw as far as talent. I still haven't seen anything like him yet. There's two guys that I take that back. I've seen a lot of great athletes, but there's 3 guys that I look at and say, man, these are some of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what God was doing when he made them, but it was almost to perfection when it comes to athletic ability. Travis Cozart, Dustin Moore, and Leonard Little. They got out of the bed and they were great. I mean, that was insane. I've never seen anything like those guys ever. I feel like I was a great athlete, but I ain't never seen anything like them before. And I'm still waiting to see something like them. That tells you a lot.
Well, Caleb and I fighting in the backyard is not going to be anything that will inspire you.
Well, Fred, we're talking star power and we're talking fighting. So I just want to know, you got some inside information probably. Who's the one player that fought Peyton Manning in practice?
Nobody.
Nobody fought Peyton?
Manning? Hey, man, that offensive line would have killed you, man.
Did anybody get close to fighting Peyton? Did Peyton ever? Because I know he got in people's faces a lot, didn't he? So
hey, man, the offensive line would be the only people he would have probably got into it with. Ain't nobody on the defensive side of the ball gonna touch Peyton.
Well, he does go in his offensive line. We saw him curse out Saturday when he was mic'd up in the NFL.
I mean, he may have gotten into it with his offensive lineman, but ain't nobody rough him up or nothing like that. That was not going to happen whatsoever. Because the other offensive lineman would have stopped you. I mean, but yeah, man, listen. When they protected Peyton in the games, they protected him the same way in practices. There was not going to be anybody to touch Peyton. You can't even get close, man. Hey, listen. That offensive line would have wore your tail out. And I'm not talking about just any offensive lineman. I'm talking about some of the best offensive linemen that ever come through Tennessee. Bubba Miller, Jeff Smith, Leslie Ratliff, Jason Lehman, those guys, they weren't playing. They're some of the toughest guys I have ever seen.
Yeah. Come on, Caleb. It's not like they had Jeremy Banks on their team.
Listen, we had fights when they were on campus too. I mean, and we gave them their battle. We gave them a run for their money. But I'm going to tell you something. Them boys were bad, man. They were they were bad. They were mean they were mean. Good. Jason Lehman still scares me to this day. And I ain't no scary person. It take a lot to scare me. But that guy didn't even talk. He just
those are the worst ones, the ones that just don't talk.
He just looked at you. And the look he gave, like, I hope I don't have to fight this big dude here, man.
Fred, you're incredible, my man. Are you at a golf event or what are you doing there in the background?
I am making my way to Tennessee Cider Company. I'm going up there to check out the facilities, man, and go, support our one of our biggest supporters with Celebrate 98, man. I had to come up and do that. I will be playing some golf tomorrow. By the way, if you got some good golf courses out there, man, I'll take an invite anytime you got one. But yeah,
I can take care
I want to come by and check out Knoxville and see my city.
Yeah, I can take care of you in golf in Chattanooga anytime. Come up.
Oh, I'd love to come play. There's a few places I like to play down there.
Yeah, we're getting rid of our kids officially. So that's like 12 days away, I think. So, man, we've got a place to stay and everything for you. So
definitely, man.
Kind of a big hippie goofy town that doesn't know
and
a lot.
Fred can lose a fight to Bob Barker on the golf course.
Now I might lose that fight.
He was actually a boxer in the Marines. Did you all know that?
I had no idea.
Bob Barker was a boxer in the Marines, and they pitched that idea to him, and they were embarrassed to pitch the concept of fighting. And he was like, I'm all for it. And the real Bob Barker.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Love that.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Drew Carey just ain't the same. And
no.
But Price is right.
I like Bob Barker.
What was the best show when you were sick at home and you could watch anything you wanted to because you weren't going to school that day?
Well, Dave, we couldn't just watch anything we wanted to. If you were going to stay at home, you had to watch whatever my grandmother was watching. And she was watching God and Light and whatever the stories that were on at the time. I can't remember the guy's name, but Victor Maitland. That's remember his name. All My Children. That's the other one. Yep. That's what you were watching. You were watching some Prices Right too. You watched whatever she was watching. You weren't watching what you wanted to. You couldn't go in the room and watch TV. You're going to sit here with grandmama and watch it.
Mine was The Price is Right, and I still remember sitting at home sick one day, and a guy kept going. They go, "What's your bid?" And he goes, $4.20, Bob. And then the next time it comes around to me, he goes, $4.20, Bob. And he kept betting. He kept bidding $4.20. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, my mom goes, just don't worry about it. All right.
Well, I'm gonna have to stand in front of God one day and say that mine was Maury, and I laughed at the worst stories when I would watch Maury. I was just falling over laughing at some of those horrible stories. But it's like those are real people's lives, and it's like I'm out here just laughing.
I always felt like Maury couldn't wait for the next commercial break to get a cigarette. He just looked like he needed a cigarette at all times. Fred, Allstate, Google Fred White Allstate, get taken care of. Tennessee Cider Company, use the promo code HAT, and you will get some free swag with great cider. I noticed they had some new flavors. They can ship it just about anywhere in the United States. So, guys, have a fantastic weekend. The next week we talk, we will have football. It's week 0, and it's not the same. But then the next one, we've got Tennessee football. So, Fred, can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming on. Caleb Calhoun, have a fantastic weekend. Thanks again, Fred.
Man, no problem, guys. It's almost football time in Tennessee, baby. Let's go.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Something happened like in the past 48 hours where I guess
know, right? That's why I came. That's another reason why I came to Tennessee and get that. I just got to get that feel. It smells like football. Let's go, baby.
I remember Bobby Bowden said we interviewed him when he got the General Nealon Award, and he said he had retired, and he said, well, I don't know what it's going to be like in the fall because I usually have to go to the restroom a lot more. I'm like, what do you have, like some sort of bowel issues when you get close to football season? And he goes, no, I really got to pee a lot more. Bobby Bowden, when it got close to football season, had to pee a lot more. We leave you with that. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.